The King of Staten Island is written and directed by Judd Apatow and stars Pete Davidson, and also is written by Pete Davidson as well. He co-wrote it and stars Davidson, Marissa Tomei, Bill Burr, Steve Buscemi, and among others. And this is a sort of semi-biographical film about Pete Davidson's himself, about his life, and it's set in Staten Island in New York, and it deals with him, who's a young man who's trying to get his life together after his mom starts dating a guy that's a firefighter who Pete Davidson's father, his characters in the film, his dad was a firefighter before he passed away, and essentially it becomes a coming of age story where Pete is having to basically bond with trying to get his life together, and also try to
It's
basically go through the
like basically a film about a lost teenager, well, not teenager, in his mid-20s, trying to find himself, what he's going to do in life,
yeah
and his struggles coping with mental illness after losing his father tragically. In the movie, it is different. His father really did die in real life, 9/11, as a firefighter in the World Trade Center. And this one changed it to hotel. His dad was killed in a tragic hotel accident from putting out a fire when he went in to try to save a family and died tragically. So they changed that. So yes, it is a semi-biography film. Some things changed, some things left real, and there is actually homages of the real shit in the background. But it's pretty much, it's the coming of age of a kid dealing with mental illness, lost in life, doesn't have much of a future, relies on drugs to treat his depression, and friends and dark humor to hide his inner demons that he's fighting, so to
yeah
speak.
yeah yeah. And now here's some backstory. Now this film was written and directed by Judd Apatow, who I've been quite a big fan of with a lot of his films within the last, almost like the last 20 years or so. He had his big break he's had his big break in like writing and producing a lot of stuff back in the mid 90s, especially with one of my personal favorites with Cable Guy, because he produced that one and cast his wife in that film.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Heavyweights was another one he did,
yeah,
and Waits, Cable Guy, and I mean, just anything. And then when he started doing films like Knocked Up and all those type of movies, I mean, the guy just makes great comedy films, and he's only the rare type of director out there that can actually make a comedy as long as the Avengers movie.
yeah,
And
and
because he's doing stories with his comedies, which that's why I think Judd Apatow. Oh, and he also did Step Brothers, helped with Step Brothers. So it just, you see that, and you know that's talent you want behind on comedy movies. And he's the type of guy I do trust with comedy movies, other
yeah,
than the Farrell brothers.
yeah, and he's directed like some really big comedies I've fondly loved. 40 Georgian, I fucking loved Knocked Up. He produced, he kind of wrote some of the story of Pineapple Express, and it was really around 2009 when he started doing more like sentimental, kind of more mature subjects with movies like Funny People, and This Is 40 and stuff. And I seen Funny People finally for the first time a couple years ago, and while the film was quite a bit long, a little over almost 2.5 hours, it did really tackle some really good mature themes that I thought he worked really well with, and it was a really great movie I enjoyed. And so with this one coming out, it got me interested because while I was a little skeptical, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little skeptical at first because I'll be honest, I'm not really the biggest fan of Pete Davidson. Of the movies I've seen him in, I'm not really the biggest fan of, like as far as his comedy, because like if you go watch our review of like we did with
The
the
Dirt.
Dirt last year, he was in that film for like a kind of a supporting role, and he was one of the things I didn't really care too much for the film. But ironically enough, he was actually one of the things that kind of made me chuckle in the shitty movie earlier we watched called The Jesus Rose. And so the guy, I'm sure, has a lot of great talent and stuff with some of his stand up and everything. It's just from the movies I've seen of him, I haven't really been the biggest fan of. And so this
Yeah,
film was a little skeptical at first.
yeah, I was the same way when I saw this movie. I know Judd Apatow was attached to it, and I know he's got a hell of a good track record. But since I was going to see Pete Davidson as a lead role, and seeing him in The Dirt, which he was really one of the biggest problems I had with that film, It's surprising enough, it wasn't until Jesus Roll, rest in peace, that piece of shit, one of the worst movies of the year. He was the only probably pro, I think, semi-pro you and I gave. And because of how his character came in doing what he was doing. But that was just a little splotch. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of him. And personally, it's got a lot to do with his I thought if people don't realize, he's really he's known big for the Saturday Night Live. And if you know me and Justin very well, the Saturday Night Live people today, I don't think I like one of them. I think Saturday Night Live is terrible. I don't like anything they do. They're painful, they're unfunny, they rely on politics, and really people like Pete Davidson that comes in. I've seen some of his stuff, and he's really not all that funny. I did watch a segment where he did a stand-up, his later stand-ups, not his earlier ones, because the earlier ones I thought he was just so fucking overrated. But there was one I did kind of like, his newest one. I was like, okay, this guy ain't too bad, but I just don't care for him. Something about him, I don't care. So, but I was still interested in seeing the story because I hear that, like, unlike many actors, that he's got a tragic past, full of tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. And I wanted to see that, but I thought Pete Davidson was going to bring his dick fart joke bullshit, shit we've always seen in other comedies that I can't stand, and I was really worried, but I heard a lot of good things about it. So I decided to give it a watch, and I'll be honest with you, I was really surprised at how good this movie was. This was a hell of a damn good movie. And Pete Davidson, I gained a lot of respect for him. And before I start getting into the review of my pros, I do want to say this. A lot of people are not seeing this movie because they don't like Pete Davidson. And speaking from a guy who is not a fan of the guy, give this movie a shot, because you will earn a lot of respect for the guy after seeing this movie, because he spilt his heart out to perfection. This guy just proved to me he can do something more than just Saturday Night Live. And I hope to see that in the future. And yeah, what can I say? Getting into the pros, that's my biggest highlight is actually Pete Davidson. Phenomenal. I mean, he was genuinely funny. His emotions felt raw. And I think that has a lot to do with his tragic past with losing his father. And he played it off so well. He played majority of the writing in this film. And for a first time, that's good. You did a very good job. And his chemistry with everybody was so good. So good. And I can't stress this enough. He was my favorite part of this movie, without a doubt.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Too much my surprise, I actually liked him a lot. He was very, very good in this. He brought a lot of nuance to his performance. He was a lot more, he was very, he was, actually fun. He was funny when he needed to be, but he was very, heartfelt, serious in parts, and he was very genuine. And he had great chemistry with everyone around, and he built a lot of character that I enjoyed as the movie goes along, because he deals with basically a mental illness type where he's dealing with a lot from his tragic life, and it works really well in the story that it plays out with. And I thought he brought a lot of great, a lot of great. He brought it very wonderful to the part.
I thought what was really what I really liked about his character was he was so relatable. And what I mean by that, yes, I don't have family that's died in 9/11 and all that stuff, but it's just seeing him, it's the way he's dealing with things and trying to make it day by day without offing himself, and, kind of finding alternative ways to cope with his life, and the anxiety taking over his life to the point he's in his mid-20s and just, has a stint of doesn't want to do anything and doesn't know what direction he wants to go. I can kind of relate to that a little bit, somewhat in my past. And that I can understand his character so well, to the point that, you know, you feel for him. I did. I felt for him.
I do.
You know, and not only that, it's based off of why he did it so good. He has problems coping with his dad in real life. And he's explained that to people. A lot of people just said, get over it, so on and so forth. A lot of people gave him shit about it. And, you know, I've seen a lot of people say that. And he uses comedy to mask. He does. He uses it. And basically, Robin Williams did. He masks. He uses it as a form of medicine. In real life, he's explained that. And you can see it. You can truly see it. And after seeing, you know, how he is, when he talks about this subject, you do see it come out of him realistically, as far as I've ever seen. And that's why I felt like why he nailed it so perfectly.
I definitely agree. Like, I thought that it did have it on a relatable level for me, because while I go through, like, personally, I go through major anxiety, social anxiety at times, and there's a lot of points where I deal with a kind of different factor, but I can relate in the fact that, you know, I'm just trying to cope with a lot of things, so to speak. And I'm trying to find, you know, laughter for trying to, you know, humor to kind of rely on to try to put myself in a good mood, so to speak, and things on a relatable level that I can understand. And I thought that the way that the movie plays out too, it's a great coming of age message, because it shows how much, you know, he starts to really accept things in life a lot better and be able to cope with things and start to actually get along with people, that, you know, and actually take the next steps with his direction that he was going in life.
Yeah,
and I thought the biggest standout for me, the best was besides, I really enjoyed, like, his dynamic a lot between him and Bill Burr. And Bill Burr, I haven't said this yet, but I find the guy pretty underrated, and I'm glad to see that he's getting a lot more attention with movies, because ever since I saw him Breaking Bad, I've always liked seeing that guy in other stuff.
Yeah, other than Breaking Bad, he really isn't a movie type of guy. He's mostly known for his raw stand-up comedy. And it was pretty interesting, to say the least, that he played a major part in this role. And I agree with you. He plays the new boyfriend to the mother who, you know, he's not ready to accept. Pete Davidson's not ready to accept him because his mom hasn't been with somebody since his father's passing. And ironically, Bill Burr is a firefighter in this film.
Yeah.
Worked similar around the area where his dad died. And there's a lot of connections. You find that later with other characters at the fire station. And it feels like a replacement type thing. And you actually, again, you can see Pete Davidson's raw emotions, how he feels like it's more of a stab at his mom or at his dad. And you deal with that first half of the film where he feels like, you know, he has, his mental illness is so bad to feel like he feels like he's a target by everybody. And you do see people wanting to help him. You see people who are lazy to help him, and people just medicating him and putting Band-Aids over his issues. You see all of that. And that's why I really like this film being how long it was. The writing was phenomenal. The chemistry, like you said, with him and Bill Burr was great, but like going into the writing now, the journey of the coming of age takes its time, and there is a con. I have one little thing, just one little nitpick, ain't a bad thing, but it's a little con. The journey is still so good because it takes its time, it builds character, and it builds for everybody too. The relationship with the mom, the broken home with him and his sister. His sister didn't get to enjoy the father thing because she was actually not even out of her mom's belly yet when he died. She was pregnant, so she never met her dad. But Pete Davidson is like much older, and he personally grew up with his dad. So it was kind of like this, you know, you get this fight between the two, like where she's normal and he's not, and she's going off to college. She was the good one, and he was the failure at everything, and they just don't click very well. They click good chemistry. I'm just saying they don't. They go at it, and they build upon that. Then you have the story with him and his troubled friends. He hangs out with some low lives, and they get him some deep shit, which was very intimidating at times.
Yeah,
and some shit they get into, and just the build up all the way to seeing him switch his life around in I'll get to that part with Steve Buscemi. That was great casting right there.
Yes.
Seeing it, he was a real firefighter, and taking him, explaining and telling him his true identity of his dad because he worked with him. And you see Pete Davidson's journey of him changing his life. He's seeing things now, and I just love the whole turn. It was very, very good, very good.
I definitely agree. I especially like the way the journey played out with him, binding with everyone, finding himself, and showing the study about how he's showing the raw emotions about lashing out and stuff, and having to really adjust to stuff. And one of the other things I got to admit too is that I like the balance that Apatow was able to combine with like his usual comedies with some of the humor that plays in, because there are some really funny moments that I actually laughed at quite a bit, and then like one of my favorite parts is actually the part where he's going to his tattoo shop and he's talking to the dude and he's talking about how this dude has these these tattoos on him. He's like, oh well, what about there? You got a fucking Confederate flag over a Grim Reaper there. Is it or something like that?
I get what you're saying. Like the comedy is good. Yeah, that part where Machine Gun Kelly was the tattoo artist,
That's
and
who it was.
he's talking shit to that one dude. Oh, he's offensive. Yeah, it was Machine Gun, and he has tattoos. The guy he was tattooing was some bald-looking dude, and he was tattooing. He was talking shit to his tattoos and stuff. And the dude gets pissed off. But like Pete Davidson had great, like everything this film had to offer, including Pete Davidson's like comedy, was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And it was able to balance hilarious and real life shit. And they just they do it so well. See, Judd Apatow, that's what I like about him, is he doesn't rely on Dick Wiener jokes every 5 seconds. He brings quips, genuine comedy that just come out and just makes you laugh so fucking hard. And that's what this did. And that's why I really enjoyed the comedy in this. Like Bill Burr adding his funniness. And then Pete Davidson was really funny, and just everything just like the part, one of my favorite on the funny spectrum was when Pete Davidson was drawing that one thing and it was a butthole.
Yeah.
See, that those raunchy, stupid, fucking like bad boys, good boys, whatever the fuck that was, and was able to not run it to the ground and just genuinely just come out of nowhere and just came off as fucking hilarious because it really did look like that.
Yeah. And that's what I appreciate about, movies like this too, about with Apatow, is that there are the way that the dialogue plays out too, it comes across like it's, very conversation like or kind of improvised, but in a good way. It doesn't rely on the shit that we see about like with current Saturday Night Live where they're doing improvised shit like with a lot of stuff. I feel like this one, when it comes to his movies, he at least does it in a very, timing with comedy and in a very like a more natural way, so to speak, how it plays out. Because you'll still see like, how people are talking and stuff, and they'll be talking about one subject, and then it turns into an argument or something. That's how you can tell when you're watching an Apatow film.
Yeah, and that's what I really liked about that. A lot of it, I heard rumors. I can't really pick and choose which, where it was at. But Pete Davidson actually invited real people of his childhood into this film, and there are genuine parts where it feels realistic, almost like the movie Kids, which was based off of like real life, just really raw emotion. I want to see standard conversation, real shit, real dialogue, and the dialogue just. It didn't feel like it was out of place. It felt like it was a part of the movie, and it felt real. And yes, they can change the subjects, and it starts arguments and shit like this and all that stuff. But going to other stuff, the dark humor was good. And another thing, I was actually pleasantly surprised at the beginning of the film. They don't play around. There is some really intense shit in this film that I didn't expect from Judd Apatow, even when he done movies like Funny People. Like he touched his bases, like with a part Pete Davidson is losing it at the wheel, and he damn near crashes and almost gets killed because he starts having a panic attack thinking of his father. Then there's some shit where his friends get him into where they want to commit a robbery, so to speak, that would literally fuck his life up. He'd be gone if they got caught. And it just, you get intense moments where they're being shot at or something, and he gets in deep. And that's what his sister explains, that he's going to fuck his life up if he doesn't change his ways. And that's what I really liked about the second half, where Bill Burr plays a bigger part. And there's some tense moments. There's a lot of tension between them two early on and, later on. But then you see everybody caring. And this is where I get to one of my favorite parts of the film also, was when Steve Buscemi came in. And Steve Buscemi was a real firefighter in real life, turned actor, turned back to firefighter, and he flew instantly to 9/11 and quit his acting career temporarily, put it on hold, and got his hands dirty, walked into fucking hell and saved people. Steve Buscemi did that. And I'm glad, because in a way you could say it's a loosely based on biography of him working as a firefighter. And because he lived that life, I felt like it was smart that he was playing a firefighter chief, and he knew all the words and stuff. And I loved his guidance that he was giving Pete Davidson. There was this part where Pete Davidson doesn't